Ashcroft Manor was a grand, old mansion perched on the cliffs overlooking the sea. It had once been the pride of the Ashcroft family, a symbol of their wealth and influence. But over the years, the manor had fallen into disrepair, its once beautiful gardens overgrown and its windows boarded up. The locals spoke of the manor in hushed tones, claiming it was haunted by the spirits of those who had died within its walls. The story begins with Rebecca, a young woman who had recently inherited the manor from a distant relative she had never met. Despite the warnings and the sinister reputation of the house, Rebecca saw it as an opportunity to start fresh and escape her troubled past. She arrived at Ashcroft Manor on a stormy afternoon, the wind howling and the rain lashing against the windows. As she explored the mansion, Rebecca couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The halls were filled with old portraits of stern-looking ancestors, their eyes seeming to follow her every move. She discovered a series of letters hidden in a secret compartment of the library, written by her great-great-grandmother, Evelyn Ashcroft. The letters told of a series of tragic events that had befallen the family. Evelyn's husband, Charles, had mysteriously disappeared, and their son, William, had died under suspicious circumstances. Evelyn had become obsessed with the idea that the manor was cursed, and her letters detailed her desperate attempts to uncover the truth. Determined to solve the mystery, Rebecca delved deeper into the letters and old family records. She discovered that Charles had been involved in a secret society that practiced dark rituals, and that his disappearance was linked to a failed attempt to summon a powerful spirit. The ritual had gone horribly wrong, and the spirit had been unleashed, bound to the manor, and seeking vengeance on the Ashcroft family. As night fell, the manor seemed to come alive with supernatural activity. Rebecca heard footsteps in the halls, whispers in the walls, and the sound of doors creaking open and slamming shut. She saw ghostly figures roaming the halls, their faces twisted in anguish. The most terrifying sight was the apparition of Evelyn, who appeared at the foot of Rebecca's bed, her eyes filled with sorrow. Evelyn's ghost led Rebecca to a hidden chamber beneath the manor, where she found an altar covered in strange symbols and candles. The room was filled with a palpable sense of dread, and Rebecca realized that this was where the failed ritual had taken place. She knew that she had to complete the ritual and banish the spirit to free her family from the curse. With trembling hands, Rebecca followed the instructions in Evelyn's letters, lighting the candles and reciting the incantation. The air grew cold, and the shadows in the room seemed to come alive, swirling around her. She felt a powerful presence pressing down on her, but she continued the ritual, determined to see it through. As she spoke the final words, a blinding light filled the chamber, and the spirit appeared before her, a towering figure of darkness and rage. Rebecca stood her ground, repeating the incantation with all her strength. The spirit let out a deafening roar and began to dissipate, its form unraveling and fading into nothingness. The manor fell silent. The oppressive atmosphere lifted. Rebecca collapsed to the floor, exhausted but relieved. She knew that the curse had been broken, and that the spirits of her ancestors could finally rest in peace. Over the next few months, Rebecca worked tirelessly to restore Ashcroft Manor to its former glory. The gardens were revived, the windows were unboarded, and the halls were filled with light and laughter once more. The locals, once fearful of the manor, came to see it as a place of beauty and history. Rebecca's story became a legend in the town, a tale of bravery and redemption. She continued to live in the manor, cherishing the memories of her ancestors, and the legacy they had left behind. Ashcroft Manor was no longer a place of fear, but a testament to the strength of the human spirit in overcoming darkness. Nestled deep within the dense forests of Eastern Europe lies the village of Gorska Dolina, a place shrouded in mystery and legends. The village was isolated, accessible only by a winding, treacherous road that many locals avoided. It was said that Gorska Dolina was cursed, its inhabitants doomed to eternal silence. The story begins with Amelia, an adventurous journalist from Warsaw who was always on the lookout for a good story. She had heard whispers about the silent village, a place where no sound existed and where people vanished without a trace. Intrigued, she decided to investigate, hoping to uncover the truth behind the eerie silence. Amelia arrived at Gorska Dolina on a cold, foggy morning. The village was eerily quiet, with no signs of life. The air was thick with an unsettling stillness that seemed to suffocate her. As she walked through the deserted streets, she noticed that the buildings were old and crumbling, as if they had been abandoned for decades. She approached the village square, where a large, ancient bell tower stood. The bell, covered in rust and ivy, was the only structure that seemed well preserved. Amelia felt a strange compulsion to climb the tower. As she ascended the narrow staircase, she noticed that the air grew colder and the silence more oppressive. At the top of the tower, Amelia found an old, leather-bound book placed on a pedestal. The book's cover was inscribed with strange symbols, and its pages were filled with cryptic text and drawings. She began to read, and as she did, she felt a chilling presence behind her. She turned to see a ghostly figure, a woman with hollow eyes and a mournful expression. The woman began to speak, but no sound came from her lips. Instead, Amelia heard the voice in her mind. The woman introduced herself as Katarzyna, a former resident of the village. She explained that Gorska Dolina had been cursed by a malevolent spirit known as the Silence Bringer, who had once been a powerful sorcerer. The sorcerer had been wronged by the villagers, and in his dying breath, he cursed them to eternal silence and despair. Katarzyna revealed that the only way to break the curse was to find the sorcerer's tomb, hidden deep within the forest, and perform a ritual to free his tormented soul. Determined to lift the curse, Amelia agreed to help. Katarzyna guided her through the forest, their journey fraught with danger and supernatural occurrences. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they encountered ghostly apparitions of the villagers, their faces twisted in anguish. The silence was so intense that Amelia could hear her own heartbeat. The trees seemed to close in around them, and the path became increasingly difficult to navigate. After hours of trekking through the dense forest, they finally reached a clearing where a large, ancient stone stood. The stone was inscribed with the same symbols as the book. Katarzyna instructed Amelia to place the book on the stone and recite the incantation written within its pages. With trembling hands, Amelia began to read the incantation. As she spoke the final words, a powerful gust of wind swept through the clearing, and the ground trembled. The ghostly figure of the sorcerer appeared before them, his eyes burning with anger and sorrow. He reached out toward Amelia, and she felt an overwhelming sense of despair. Katarzyna stepped forward, her ethereal form glowing with a soft light. She pleaded with the sorcerer, asking for his forgiveness and urging him to let go of his anger. The sorcerer's expression softened, and he slowly began to fade away. As he disappeared, the oppressive silence lifted, and the forest was filled with the sounds of nature once more. Amelia returned to the village, where she found the inhabitants slowly emerging from their homes, their voices tentative and filled with wonder. The curse had been lifted, and Gorska Dolina was no longer silent. The villagers thanked Amelia for her bravery, and she promised to share their story with the world. As she left the village, Amelia felt a sense of peace, knowing that she had helped to free the souls of Gorska Dolina from their eternal torment. She returned to Warsaw, where she wrote an article about her experiences, capturing the hearts and minds of her readers. The legend of the Silent Village became a story of hope and redemption, a reminder that even the darkest curses can be broken. Blackwater Creek was a small forgotten town nestled in the Appalachian Mountains. Once a bustling mining community, it had fallen into disrepair after the mines closed and the town's population dwindled. The remaining residents lived in constant fear of the shadows that lurked in the forest, whispers of a malevolent presence that had haunted the town for generations. The story begins with Ethan, a young man who had recently inherited his grandfather's cabin in Blackwater Creek. Eager to escape the chaos of city life, he decided to move to the cabin and start anew. As he arrived in the town, he couldn't help but notice the wary glances of the locals and the pervasive sense of dread that hung in the air. Ethan's grandfather, Henry, had been a respected figure in the town, known for his knowledge of the local folklore and legends. Among his possessions, Ethan found an old journal filled with detailed accounts of strange occurrences and eerie encounters in the forest surrounding Blackwater Creek. Intrigued, Ethan decided to explore the woods and uncover the truth behind the stories. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, Ethan ventured into the forest, armed with only a flashlight and his grandfather's journal. The dense canopy of trees quickly swallowed the fading light, and the forest grew dark and foreboding. Ethan followed a narrow trail that led to an old abandoned mine shaft, the entrance partially obscured by overgrown vegetation. According to the journal, the mine was the epicenter of the strange happenings in Blackwater Creek. Ethan carefully made his way inside, the air growing colder with each step. The walls of the mine were covered in strange symbols and drawings, their meanings lost to time. As he ventured deeper, he felt a creeping sense of unease, as if he were being watched. Suddenly his flashlight flickered and died, plunging him into darkness. He fumbled for his matches and lit a candle he had brought with him. In the dim light, he saw shadows moving on the walls, shifting and twisting in unnatural ways. He heard faint whispers, growing louder and more insistent, urging him to leave. Ethan continued deeper into the mine, determined to find the source of the malevolent presence. He reached a large chamber where he found an ancient altar, covered in dust and cobwebs. The journal described this altar as a place of dark rituals, where the miners had unknowingly unleashed a powerful and vengeful spirit. As Ethan examined the altar, he felt a cold hand on his shoulder. He turned to see a shadowy figure standing before him, its eyes glowing with a sinister light. The figure spoke in a voice that seemed to come from the very walls of the mine, telling Ethan that the spirit had been bound to the mine for centuries, feeding on the fear and despair of the townspeople. Ethan realized that the only way to free the town from the spirit's grasp was to destroy the altar and break the curse. He grabbed a nearby pickaxe and began to smash the altar, the shadows swirling around him in a frenzy. As the altar crumbled, the ground shook, and the mine began to collapse. With the spirit's hold weakening, Ethan raced to escape the collapsing mine. He stumbled through the dark tunnels, the sounds of the crumbling earth echoing in his ears. Just as he reached the entrance, The mine caved in behind him, sealing the spirit and its dark power within. Ethan emerged from the forest, battered and exhausted, but triumphant. The oppressive atmosphere that had plagued Blackwater Creek was lifted, and the townspeople began to feel a renewed sense of hope. Ethan shared his story with the locals, who thanked him for his bravery and welcomed him into their community. Over time, Blackwater Creek began to recover, and the legend of the shadowy presence became a distant memory. Ethan continued to live in his grandfather's cabin, documenting his experiences and the stories of the town's recovery. The tale of the Shadow of Blackwater Creek became a testament to the power of courage and determination in the face of darkness. Do you enjoy spooky short stories? Consider subscribing. Until next time, friends, good night.